Well, hello everybody. Welcome to another edition of Paranormal Plus. What's going on, Tracy?
Hey, Chris, how are you doing today?
Oh, doing fine. Hello there, Denise. Twisted Witch. Hello there. Hello. How's everybody?
I'm actually excited today, Chris. I got three good things, three good pieces of news today.
Really?
Yeah. The first one that without promoting myself, I try not to do that too much, but I'm Drunk Again song that I released on July 4th is getting small market radio airplay, so I'm excited about that. The second thing is Paralink.com. We reached a goal in people that we were hoping to by this time of we started in January. It's been 6 months, so we've been hoping to get to this goal. So we got to that. And the third thing is we got a great guest on tonight. That's my third.
Yeah. So who we got coming on?
We have Johnny Hauser, and I know a lot of people know him. He he's been around for quite a long time. I'm going to read you a quick bio that he had sent me, but then we're going to talk to him all about it. He's about 25 years investigating cryptids, UFOs, ghosts, murder mysteries, and monsters. He's appeared on Travel Channel, Discovery Channel, Destination America, Sci-Fi, A&E. He's done countless lectures and podcasts, and he's most known for his research of the Villisca Axe murders house. Sorry about that. I've listened to interviews with him. I've known about him for a while, and it's really exciting because he's everybody's that I know that's ever talked to him or anything like that. He's a really good person. So that's what I got to say about him. So
all right, well, let's welcome aboard Johnny. Come on down. Welcome to the show, there, brother. How you doing?
Man, I feel like the pressure is put on me now.
Oh,
Lord, watch out!
Hey, that was your bio.
Oh,
yeah. How you doing tonight, Johnny?
I'm doing good. And what's this? I'm Drunk Again song.
Yeah. So I now listening to some stuff over the last couple of weeks about you. I know you're into the guitar playing, or you have been in the past.
He don't even drink.
Yeah, I don't even drink anymore. I quit about 9 years ago. But I kind of tuned into my past when I was writing a song. I have an album out. It's called It's About Time, and it's a country music album. Get a chance to look it up. It's on Spotify and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
But we released a song called I'm Drunk Again to the radio, to country radio, and it's getting a little bit, get some small market airplay.
Right up my alley. I'm going to be listening to that tonight. And
I tell you what, it's a good drinking song. It really is, and it'll kind of remind you of probably some stupid shit you did growing up. See, my stupid stuff we all did when we were growing up and younger.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. No, hey, again, we appreciate you coming on. Definitely do. So first of all, I introduced you to Chris. We talked a little bit before that. We talked about the Bigfoot stuff, and Chris is really into that, but he's into a lot of paranormal stuff as well. He has some dolls in his room there, and they seem to tend to want to come out and talk to us every once in a while. So that's pretty cool. He gets some.
Yeah, they sure do.
I love it.
But I would just like to ask you, I'd like you to walk us through, if you wouldn't mind. Like I said, I've listened to some interviews. I followed up on a lot of stuff with you, but walk us through how you got started in this field.
Okay. So, I kind of got to go all the way back to when I was a little baby. We lived in a 2-story house, and I was maybe 1 year. I was still crawling. I don't know how old I was, but Mom's on the 2nd story putting away laundry in all the kids' rooms. Summer day, the windows were open. I crawled out of the second story window and fell all the way down to the ground outside. I can't imagine mom's thought process at that moment. I'm sure it's just pure panic. She runs out. I'm fine. Not even a scratch on me, she said. And she always said, "Oh, the angels were watching you that day." Every house I've ever lived in, weird stuff has happened. And as I got older, it's just the family ghost, just one of us, like, oh yeah, Hauser's ghost. As I got older, I'm like, not anything weird has happened. Like there hasn't been violent murders or deaths in every single one of those houses. So like I went back to them. I knocked at the doors, which is super awkward. Like, hey, I used to live here. Anything weird happen? And every one of them said, no, most peaceful place we ever lived.
Yeah.
My very first job was filling in graves at a cemetery when I was 14. End up at the Obelisk Axe Murder House running it, and it's just, it kind of got me on my thought process of there's haunted houses and there's haunted people. And no matter how I would try and become normal, when you're 16, all you care about's cruising around and looking for girls and stuff. And I tried to do that, and the weird stuff would bring me back. And finally, decided, screw it, let's just go full weird. Yeah, why hold back? But my first loves were Bigfoot. I begged mom to get me the Time Life book series, Mysteries of the Unexplained. And so from there, it went to UFOs and legends and just everything, I wasn't a real big ghost guy until the Axe Murder House. And I was just like, this is real? Like, come on. It's like the moon's a robot full of the reptilian species and it's hollow on the inside, but ghosts are dumb. It's like, you're going to be weird. You got to be full weird. You can't be selective weird. So I just embrace all of it.
Huh. So something that caught my eye there and my attention is 14 years old working in a graveyard. So you were digging holes and filling holes back in with caskets in them, huh?
Well, they would dig the holes with a backhoe, but they thought it was funny to give a little 14-year-old kid a shovel and go, fill it in. And like, that does a lot to the psyche of a 14-year-old to take a scoop and throw it on the casket, and the dirt falls over the casket. And it's like this, makes this odd noise, and it just weird. And it's weird to make a little kid do that, like, 14 years old, your brain's not even developed yet. And, fill in this grave. And I mean, as I look back on my life, it's just like puzzle pieces. It's like I've always been the weirdo. There's that scene in Napoleon Dynamite where he's doing the essay on Loch Ness Monster and everybody's laughing. I did that in 7th grade. Like, scientists are detonating explosives at the bottom of Loch Ness Monster. And I remember all the students laughing. And the teacher goes, just stop. You're never going to do anything with all this hubbubaloo, I think she called it. And I'm just like, screw you, teacher. I did too. So,
yeah.
Any school come through the Axe Murder House, I end my lecture with, don't listen to your teachers. Do whatever you can. The reason we live in this country and our veterans have fought and died so we can live in this country is so we can do anything you want to do. Invent your own. It's better to apply for a job or invent a job than apply for one. Like, you can work for your dreams or somebody else's dreams. Pick it, and just make it work.
Yeah, I know I can't speak for Chris, but I know at 14, if I was having to I stayed away from cemeteries at that age. I would have probably been one of the ones that went the other way if I was asked to do that. So I don't know. What do you think, Chris? What would you have done?
I don't think I'd be filling it. Great. No.
That's awesome that you did. I mean, that's cool. And like you said, looking back now at my age, I probably wouldn't be doing it. But then again, at 14, who knows, right? I mean, you're not really thinking about it. Hey, that's just a box down there. Throw it in.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I knew it was messed up at the time, but I was like, okay, an adult's telling me to do this. It's my job, my first job. I have to do it. But I realized the deep spiritual connection of doing that as I was doing it. I'm like, this is this is strange. But I'm also making my own Ouija boards, playing Bloody Mary in the mirror, walking around cemeteries. I was just a weird kid. I've never been to a Super Bowl party in my entire life.
Oh, really?
But I have a lot of friends that think Bigfoot is a time traveling alien that hovers. I'd rather talk to those people. I like the weirdos.
Yeah. Yeah. I got to admit, and I said something about this before when we were talking backstage. I haven't met a paranormal person face to face or even on the phone really, or on internet that I haven't liked. I mean, I've been on a few podcasts myself, and they treat you with respect. And I think that it's just because they understand that even though we're a little bit different, we shouldn't treat each other different.
No,
if that makes any sense.
We're all weird. We're in this field. I mean, we're obviously weird little kids, and we probably were picked on, and we know how that feels to not fit in, and I've never been a sports guy. I have no idea. I couldn't do anything athletic if I wanted to, so it's like, I get it. And I was in a position where I could hang out with anyone really in school, the jocks or the skaters or the punks and the farmers, the math nerds. And I just chose to hang out with the weird kids because these kids would take a bullet for you. They'd do anything for you. They weren't fake. They were real, true friends. And I just prefer the odd people. They're more interesting. I went to a school reunion and I talked to the big football jock that I hated. I hated this kid all through school because he was just mean. And he told me something. He goes, my parents were making me dress like that and making me go out for sports. I just wanted to hang out with you guys. You had more fun. I didn't want to do all this. It was my parents making me do this. And I'm like, if only we would have known when we were kids that we could have all hung out and all had fun together.
Yep, I agree. That's a great point. That's a great point. So, you said you'd mentioned when you rolling out of the second story and going throughout your life, feeling the way you feel. Do you think you have some type of connection, or not connection, but some type of entity, for lack of a better word, that's with you all the time? Do you think? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I know I'm weird and different. I look back on my life and I remember, Sunday evenings, Mom and we'd all go to church. Afterwards, we'd drive around the country, and that's just what we did on Sundays. Maybe we'd eat Pizza Hut once a month. Going out to eat was a big deal back then, and
yeah.
I remember sitting in the back of my dad's Chrysler and I see looks like a ball bearing in the sky, and I'm staring at it for half an hour, and it'd go up, boom, back down, up, boom, back down, and then finally it just goes gone. I remember another time we seen this weird light in the sky, and we told our dad and uncles, and they threw us in the car. We went chasing it. We ended up in a farm field out in the middle of nowhere. There's a sheriff in the farm field, and he goes, "Oh, it's a weather balloon." Of course. Why is there a sheriff in the middle of a field in the middle of the night? Come on. So this, my life's always revolved around weird stuff happening. That's my norm, Maybe I was picked to do this. I like to think I'm probably the only one in the world that could do the Axe House the way it's done. It's like I'm a true crime nerd as well. But the Axe House, terrible tragedy happened there. 6 little kids were murdered. It's not cool. It's not funny or fun. Yeah. It's terrible. And every day I walk in there and I'm like, please, God, let me do these tours the way they should be done, with honor and respect and dignity. And, and maybe other people would do that, but I just feel like I'm that guy that's supposed to be doing that. And maybe all of this in my life was leading up to me being at the Axe House. Maybe there's some other purpose, but.
So with you bringing that up, would you mind, for people that are on or watching that may not be familiar with the Axe House, could you give us a history on it?
Yeah. So June 9th, 1912, town of Liska has a church service. It's like an end of Bible school event. So the Moores, a family of 6, come home with Ina and Lena Stillinger, 2 friends that just happened to stay the night. They had 2 little boys with them they went off to their house last second. Ina and Lena lived out in the country, and the big plan was next day the school teacher is going to meet them out front in the morning and walk them home, then she'll come back. Next day, Mary Peckham, whose bedroom I'm in right now, noticed something was up. She gets a relative to check on the family. He finds Ina and Lena downstairs. The authorities find the Moores up. 8 total, 6 kids, sadly, 2 adults. All murdered with an axe, which was left in the house. Bacon on the floor, mirrors covered with sheets, food at the table, bloody water, cigarette butts, footprints, all destroyed by half the town, trampling around looking at it. Long story short, there was a witch hunt for 5 years. 5 years of gossip in a small town about a murder. Give me a break. Yeah. Old man so-and-so is weird. He did it, which went nowhere. 1918, a minister named Reverend Kelly confessed, said a voice told him to kill. A shadow came out of the backyard, handed him the axe. He followed the shadow in the house, climbed Jacob's ladder to heaven, killed everyone. Then he said he didn't. And then he said he was a detective for the Queen of England. So, tried him for the death of Lena, hung jury. Death of Ina, full acquittal. It's Iowa's oldest cold case. We have no idea what happened. So all this nonsense on the internet of the killer hid in the barn, peering out of a knothole for a week. So, I don't even know who did it. Like, what? If you go with Reverend Kelly, he said he walked in the front door, or the killer rode in on the train. That's a very general assumption because he had 200 people on and off the train every week, and Villisca is a big stop between here and Chicago. The forensics guys are my favorite. White male between the ages of this and this. A white guy in Villisca in the 1900s. Huh.
Yeah.
That narrows it down.
Yeah, no kidding. Man, that's crazy. I've read up on it before, and it still amazes me that, that they don't know who it was. I mean, and it's very, very sad. That's a horrible thing to happen, especially anywhere in the world. And then like that time period, man, I couldn't even fathom, especially if you're the family member, if you're one of the family members of them, trying to figure out what's going on. You can imagine what goes through your mind with all that.
Right. And, when I do the tours, I'll give the history. I'll let people free roam the house. And what's interesting to me is I'm like paranormal psychologist. Like, people will come out afterwards and they just spill their guts to me. One guy started crying. His wife just left him. I'm divorced. Like, I gave him my insight on it, and like, hey man, it seems terrible now, but 6 months from now, it'll be normal. Like, it's hard. I got you. And many people who have lost kids of their own come down there, and they're just looking for a sign of something in the afterlife. And I feel like I can talk to these people and try and maybe make them smile and make them forget about it for a while, or offer them some hope. And that's the true meaning behind that. We're not going to figure out who did it at this point. The real moral of the story is love your family, hug your kids. Don't get so wrapped up in ghosts that you forget there's real people around you that care about you, Agreed
100%. Chris has a background of police, and stuff like that. And he talks with, psychics that are actually deal with the government, isn't it, Chris?
Yes, sir.
For cold cases.
Yeah,
Nice.
so we do a cold case every Friday on missing persons murder cases, and they're unsolved. And I've got one that worked for the U.S. government that remote viewed on the Soviet Union during the Cold War. What is it? The Cold War, during the Cold War era. So very interesting. And we get a lot of good facts, and we get a lot of good information, and we turn over to the authorities and the families to hopefully recover the bodies and go for there. So, but we do have to disclose it's entertainment purposes only, and everybody's, innocent to proven guilty in a court of law. But it's very interesting. We do it every Friday. So, yeah, it's I have a lot of psychics across the world that participate in that. So
it's interesting that the government used psychic, powers to figure out what the Russians were doing back then. What's that movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats or something like that, which is about that very thing. You know, it's interesting that what the government knows that we don't supposedly know, you know. It's I was a big conspiracy guy before I got to the Axe House, and now I'm waiting for a conspiracy to happen that's not true. You know, like
no, I agree.
It's just crazy nowadays.
So I'm going to ask what everybody else is probably thinking is, how did you get to the Axe House? What happened there?
So I was actually a musician in Nashville for over a decade. I played guitar and lap steel for this country artist that was some CMT show. It was like a Rising Star, I think it was, as like American Idol, but for country. Yeah. She rode that into the ground and met my now ex-wife, which sounds like a country song, at a club we were playing at in Des Moines. Later, we took her on as merch girl. She went with us. We got married. She got pregnant. At this point in my life, I'm just like, if my drummer slurps his pop one more time, I'm just nosediving out of this bus. Like, I cannot take, it's too much with the same people. You know what I mean? And nothing is more depressing than being in a motel 1,000 miles away from home on a Sunday. That is bad. You know, it's like Sundays were home with family, having a Sunday meal, pot roast in the crock pot, you know. And so I was ready for a change, and she wanted to move where her family is from, which is Volusia. And I'm like, oh, the axe murders. Like, I knew about it from the true crime perspective. Walked down here every day, and I bugged Darwin, who bought the house, and he's like, you're here every day. Do you need a job? I might as well pay you to do something while you're here. And it was just a hobby. And then Travel Channel does a top 10 most terrifying. Here comes Chad Kalake with American Ghost Hunter with Ryan Buell and everybody, and Ghost Adventures, Ghost Lab, Dead Files, Kindred Spirits, Destination Fear. Now we're getting the BuzzFeeds and the Sam and Colbys, and I mean, everybody's been there. Anytime a show calls now, I'm just like, why? Like, everyone knows it's haunted at this point, you know. Yeah. But as I was learning, and I didn't know that there were ghost hunting teams back then. I just did it alone. But I had a lot of questions, and I was in a lucky position to where the people that taught me and answered my questions were Ghost Adventures, Ghost Lab, Dead Files, Kindred Spirits, you know, all the TV guys. And, you know, Katrina Heather Taddy is still one of my best friends, and she's my go-to, like, for occult cases, because I don't know anything about that. That's not my wheelhouse. Like, yeah, hey, Taddy, what's this mean? I send her a picture, and she's like, you know, and she'll offer her insight, and to be able to learn from her, which learned from Lorraine Warren, worked with her, you know, it's just, yeah, it's like being in Haight-Ashbury in the 60s. You're going to run into Jimi Hendrix and Jim Morrison and Janis Joplin. Oh, yeah. You know, and everybody was cool, and everybody offered insight, and I still text everybody with questions. And I took my ghost hunting from a musician standpoint. So Randy Rhoads, who played for Ozzy Osbourne, yep, known as one of the greatest guitar players that's ever lived. I read where every town he went to on tour with Ozzy, he'd find the local music shop and take a music lesson just from the nobody there working at the shop, because he said there's always something to learn from somebody, always something. And I've always taken that into my paranormal. I don't know everything. Can't be an expert on something that's not even proven to exist, you know, really technically. And
yep, I agree.
So I try and take tidbits of everything from everybody and my own stuff. And anytime there's a young team that comes to the Axe House, I try and offer and encourage these young kids to, you know, here's what I've learned from Johnny Zaffis and, you know, and so-and-so and so-and-so and Nick Groff, and, you know, take that along with your journeys. Maybe you'll further it.
Yeah, that's a great advice right there. You can always learn. Somebody can always teach you something somewhere, man. Yeah. You know, I find that a lot. I'm a member of that paranormal We're just a small group of friends around here from St. Louis. If you ever look it up, it's T.H.A.T. It's just acronym for all of our friends, right? Yep. And we just did a cemetery the other night, but we do a lot of more private hunts than we do public hunts. Mm-hmm. But when we have friends or people come with us, other hunters come with us, they're always teaching us different things. I talked a little bit before this about the Edinburgh Manor, up in Iowa, with Cat Armstrong and William Armstrong, their group, and then they had a couple other people. So about a week before we went up there, my wife and I were just going to Field of Dreams. That's all we were going to do, right? Yeah. And I thought, man, while we're there, we ought to try to do a ghost hunt. So then I found that Edinburgh Manor. So I called up there and said, hey, they have somebody already doing a hunt, but they were nice enough to let us come up and hunt with them. And I had never done the Estes method before. And this, I think it was last June or sometime last year. And that was really, really neat to see that. I'd never done it. I'm not an expert. I'm far from expert when it comes to ghost hunting, but I am genuine. I do believe that it's out there. I do believe that, the stuff exists. And I have had, Ashmore Estates, we had the tricycle move and we were there. We got it on videotape.
Yep.
Orbs. I'm kind of hit and miss with orbs. You can almost debunk almost all of them. But then again, I've seen some that you can't debunk, they're few and far between for me. The EVPs and that me and Chris talk about this a lot, the K2s, the EMF meters, man, I can have a conversation with something on an EMF meter without an issue and totally believe it because, it's stopping and going right when we say stop and go.
Yeah. I remember 20 years ago, the whole fad of orbs with faces in them. And they'd zoom in and look like a smiley face.
Yeah.
We've grown a lot, When I first got in the game, I reached out to every paranormal team in my area. Like, hey, I just want to learn. I get it. I'll shut up. I'll stay out of your way. I'll roll cables. I'll pack everything. Make me do the grunt work, and nobody emailed me back. Not one single team. And until I'd been on the TV shows, then all of them wanted me on their team. And I'm just like, nah, where were you at when I was just begging, So it's good to see teams working together and taking on, like you guys, to come on in on our hunt. That's cool. Like that never happened 20 years ago. It was a very cliquey thing, and it kind of somewhat is still, but everything is. I'm part of a bow hunting group on Facebook. I love to bow hunt. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. Shooting my pilot for travel or for outdoor channel, getting in big arguments about what gear to use, and it's just like you could be in a quilting group and shooting a pilot for Martha Stewart. It's like,
well, it's bound to happen, and like we talked earlier, in 2 years, year and a half, 2 years, it's just the community's exploded, and you have to face it that there's going to be some type of negativity. There's going to be some people debunking the natural stars, that have been stars for a while.
Yeah.
We actually we've got some pretty good comments here. You're going to see that Facebook user. That's Tim Cummer saying, "What's up, fellas? What's up, Johnny?" I don't know if Tim, sure you know Tim, but and a lot of people are talking about how it's freaking scary. Are you able to see them when they come through, Johnny?
Yeah, I see them kind of pop up on the screen. And
all right, cool. Hey, if you guys have any questions, I know I think Grizzly, we usually go to cut to a commercial right now. But when we come back, if you guys have any questions, let's make sure we ask them. And we're going to continue talking about the house and talking with Johnny about some other things.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Paranormal Plus. We got Johnny with us this evening. So, yeah. Welcome,
Hey, you brought
Standing Stones and everybody. Go ahead, Tracy.
Hey, you brought up something. I'm sorry to interrupt, Chris. You brought up something earlier about the Warrens. I'm actually a part of the Warren Legacy Foundation with Chris, with Elizabeth's grandson Chris, and that's a pretty good group. I don't know if you've heard of it or been involved in all of it. It was one thing that was explained to me. Is Elizabeth. Her goal at the towards the end there, whenever they created that, was to get psychics involved. And one of the cool things I thought about was, even though a lot of the movies aren't from the Warrens aren't 100% accurate, after the movies came out, they actually started bringing more people out of the woodwork and asking, hey, what's going on with this? I think I can do the same thing. I think I have that same ability. So they were able to bring in people like that. So I thought that was pretty cool thing that they had started, so.
Oh, definitely. So the psychic phenomena, I've never really had an opinion on until the longer I've been at the Axe House, the more weird things would happen think about somebody, then they call. Little things like that. My daughter, when she's little, we do daddy-daughter date nights, and it'd be go eat Mexican, then go watch whatever scary movie, The Conjuring, Insidious, at the theater. And we're eating at a Mexican restaurant and just having the chips and salsa, and I had this little flash in my head where she put her straw in her pop with her finger over it, where you pull it out and there's soda, and she blew it in my face. And I was just like, man, she knows way better than to do that. Then she did it like 2 seconds later, which is totally out of her character. And it tripped me out so much I couldn't even enjoy my dang burrito. It's just like, what was that a psychic flash of what was about to happen? Or did I think that and impose it telekinesis wise to her head, So I've learned to really trust my intuition and stuff more and more. As far as psychics at the house, I've probably had 10,000 psychics in the last 20 years at the Axe House. Not 2 of them have given me the same story. Now, I don't think they're fake. I just think they get what they get, and the house is just messing with them, blocking them from certain information. And like for a long time, people would do EVP sessions of, tell me who did this. Who's the killer? $1 million question. Every single person that comes there asks. They were all getting different names that nobody'd ever heard of. Once a year, I go back through the old detective notes to try and refresh, because there's so much in the case. You just forget stuff.
Yep.
All those names that people were getting were names of townspeople who lived in town at the time. The guy who owned the shoe store, I mean, you got to be a super nerd with Villisca history to know that guy's name. I don't say it on purpose. His name comes out. So whatever is in there is just messing with people. And I think they're just messing with psychics and giving them false readings, and because
what if there was a vendetta on the family by the townspeople?
I've thought that, the old Skidmore, Missouri thing where the whole town is involved. Maybe I don't know. It's all speculation and all guesswork at this point, but it's like interesting how. So I'm just going to say, I make a lot of Axe House purists mad with this comment. I don't think the family's there. I don't think they've ever been there. The stuff that happens there, this is very typical. Had a guy by himself, gets an EVP of a woman saying a woman's name, Class A. He messages me. I was bored, so I went down and listened to it. It's like, that name doesn't ring a bell historically. I'll have to research. He said, no, that was his girlfriend's name 33 years ago in Texas, who's still alive. Next day, YouTubers from Maryland, name from their past, super personal. To me, that's something in there going, I know everything about you, and I want you to know I know everything about you. Something very scary, very intelligent, very unsettling. That's the stuff that comes out of the Axe House. John Worley, who called kindred spirits down. Investigator got an EVP that said kill John Worley. I'm like, dude, everybody gets that. Kill insert name. It's normal Axe House stuff, you know. I'm like, you were here, you're fine. It's not going to kill you a year from now at Walmart, you know.
Yeah.
But it's something. So Dave Schrader sends me this EVP. I was there when it was caught. I know it's legit, and it's very much the residual sounds of the murders. It's like wham, wham, ah, wham, please God, no, wham. Like tough to listen to. Yeah. And I was listening to it the other day, and he's like, this is incredible. It's like, yeah, it is. I was there. It's legit. And then I thought, that's not what happened. They weren't running around screaming their heads off. They were all in bed sleeping. Like, we know that for a fact. So whatever created that EVP is doing so just to instill sadness, sorrow into people that listen to it. You know, and that's the stuff that comes out of that house. Not something 9-year-old Catherine Moore would be doing, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Almost like they're embellishing it a little bit, maybe, huh?
Yeah. Like, I don't think it's the D word, you know? I think it's just something nasty, inhuman entity was here long before that house was even here.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's my guess at this point, but I don't know. What do I know?
Yeah. So FDL Paranormal wants to know, what is your best experience in the paranormal?
My best experience was not even investigating. I had a close friend of mine. Her mother passed away in a car accident. So we take the kids and grandkids out to their farm. They write letters on helium balloons. They let them off in the sky. It's called Letters to Heaven. One of the balloons gets caught about 40 feet up in a tree branch. And I'm just like, kind of bad for whoever wrote that note, you know. And we go half a mile back to the farmhouse, take a left, another left, up on the back porch through a little doorway. And we're talking about how the mom used to love scaring the kids. And that balloon comes floating through the doorway, lands on a lawn chair and stops. And my friend, my friend at the time didn't believe in anything. I'm like, explain that. And she goes, well, it's weird. Well, I'm not a physics major, but it's filled with helium. It's going to go up. It's not going to come down against the wind, make 2 sharp left-hand turns through a doorway on a lawn chair. She goes, well, that's not my mom's lawn chair. So debunked, you know. And then later on, she admitted that she had a dream that night that she got a letter from her mother postmarked the day she was killed in the car crash saying, I'm proud of you. And so I love what you've become. You're such a great young woman, and like very personal stuff. There is no way that could happen. And I've seen everybody since then within the last month. And I'm like, tell me what happened that night with the balloon. See if we remember it the same, because perception is weird. And they all remember it exactly the same. There's no way that could happen. That is her mother saying, I'm here. And that was undeniable for me.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
No, that's not crazy. That's awesome. Actually, to have been there would have been that would have been awesome to have been there, just to
very comforting. And then every year we have a big party for her mom's birthday, and we did the balloon thing again, and one got caught in a tree. And I'm like, okay, let's watch this. Let's see what happens, you know. And it got loose, and what did it do? It went up because it's filled with helium, you know. So like that.
Definitely. So yeah, everybody's replying to your story here. They seem enthralled by it, you know, to an extent. It's that's awesome. So like I said, I have a friend, Tom Skundridge, who's in that paranormal with me. You know, he's a pretty big fan of yours, and he actually says he had met you at Ashmore Estates with Nick Groff. You guys, I guess, right before, probably 2 years before COVID.
Yep.
But he had an amazing time with you guys, and he was very appreciative. Me and my wife and Tom went the following year with the Daniel Class and Nick Groff, and he came through there. Yeah, so that was a pretty good time too, and very knowledgeable people that I saw. And Tom said the same thing about you, very knowledgeable. So, you know, so for everybody that's watching, you know, this guy's top of the line, personal and in the community itself, right? We discussed a little bit offline here about the way things are nowadays, and with the paranormal community taking off, the newer groups of people come in. You had discussed that there's newer groups coming through the Axe Murders house, which is awesome that we're getting those people there, and Chris and I totally believe in guiding them if they need help, supplying them with any type of knowledge that we may have, what are your thoughts on all that, Johnny?
Oh, for sure. Like, these are our children. They are our kids in our country. And, if we're not encouraging them, maybe some kind of bully, like jerk, like who sits and downs some little kid that's trying. That was us once,
Mm-hmm.
One day that was like, and I try and impart to them any wisdom I have. And I'm just like, you guys are the future of this field. Like, we've made some leaps and bounds in the last 25 years, but we really haven't moved that far. Like, it's up to you guys. Come up with new ideas, new equipment, new scenarios, new technology, and just, try and further it a little bit and then impart the wisdom to the new kids coming up when you're old. Like, I was telling Nick Groff the other day, is like, we are becoming the Johnny Zaffis of this group, the Godfather. We're starting to fill that role now, the older we get. And
yeah,
and like the Sam and Colby, the YouTubers. I have a lot of friends that kids these days don't know the meaning of work, and it's like, shut up. They're millionaires. You're just mad because you're not a millionaire. If I could have done that, if I could be a millionaire at 17 years old from putting a video on YouTube, awesome. It's like, and these kids are, I mean, they were the nicest kids I've ever met. When you meet someone and you just instantly love them. They're so polite and so nice. As I'm walking home, I'm having the dad conversation in my head. Those are some fine boys. My daughter's like, who's at the Axe house? I go, some YouTubers. I had no idea who they were. They said they were YouTubers. I go, hey, everyone's a YouTuber. And I felt bad. I'm like, I'm a YouTuber. I got 2 subscribers, guys. Had to knock at the door so she could meet them. Then none of her friends would talk to her at school. And anyone that doesn't know who Sam and Colby is, they're basically new kids on the block, but they ghost hunt cute boys with cute haircuts and trendy clothes. But you know what? They were on Joe Rogan podcast talking about ghosts. I know every big name in this field that has a TV show has tried to get on Joe Rogan, and they failed because Joe Rogan doesn't want to even entertain ghosts, but they made it. So you know what? Good for them. They talked about ghosts and locations that we all know and love on Joe Rogan, the biggest podcast in the entire planet. Zach Baggins didn't do that.
Nope.
Brad and Barry Clinton didn't. Love them, but these kids did it. So props to them. We're all on the same team.
Exactly. And I've never watched them, but I'm going to go check them out tonight after we get off here and see what they're all about.
I watched the episode here, and I watch I watch all the shows everybody does. There's been a few shows here lately where I'm just like, I'm about to fall asleep watching this,
Yeah.
These kids are excited. They hear a footstep, they freak out, and the old school OGs of the paranormal are like, overreacting. It's like, they're young kids. They've never experienced this. It's a footstep from nowhere. It's exciting. And they're like, oh my God, that youthful energy got me pumped up about the field again.
Yep.
It's like, we need that. And the next episode, they were at Transylvania at Dracula's castle.
Man.
Right. It's like, that's amazing.
That's living the life there, man. That's awesome.
They're spreading the news, and that's all we can ask for is more weirdos like us to keep this in the public eye. Yeah. Otherwise, it's just going to fade off again. And I can remember when the paranormal was nerdy and stupid, and now it's cool.
Yeah, now it's cool.
That makes us cool, right, guys?
Yeah, yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So whenever these guys, these newer kids, or even like me, because I ask this all the time on this show with people, with guests, is what's your go-to piece of equipment?
Digital recorder for sure. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars in paranormal equipment, all the cool lights and whistles, and the music box.
Yes.
So awesome and so creepy, and it's so cool and costs much, and I'm like, really, this is just a motion detector that you can buy at Walmart for $2 that does the same thing. I mean, they're awesome. I want one, but I ended up selling a lot of my equipment because I'm walking around these awesome locations and I'm worried about, does this have batteries? Is this on? Is this work? And it's like, who knows what's even happening around me that I'm just missing?
You're right, man. It takes away from it. It takes away from your personal experience when you're trying to make, not, I hate to say lack of better words, but you're trying to entertain other people while you're there.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'd rather, like I said, I take an EMF meter with me and the recorder and a few other piece of equipment for myself. I would rather do that, a camera, just to try to catch orbs if I was going to do that, and a video camera, just set in the corner,
cat ball.
Cat balls, yeah.
Man, those are my favorite, Johnny.
Yeah.
They get thrown at me in my studio. I have to take mine down. They get thrown at me while I'm live. They hit me in my head. They hit me in my... Yes. I have to take them down.
I knew exactly what it was. I have the same cat balls. I have a bunch of them. I use them too. And I actually just picked up an old 1970s reel-to-reel recorder with the Bob Barker microphone.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start doing EVP sessions with that on old school tape, like 1970s Ed and Lorraine stuff, And
yeah, I was in a camera store, like we talked offline. We're going to London August 5th for a week, and 10 days. We're going to hit Paris. We're going to one day, and we're going to go to the catacombs. And so I'm looking for a good camera, video camera to take with me. That's light, that's small, one of the little 4Ks. And I didn't go to a box store. I went to, a mom and pop store, and I was looking up on the shelf, and they had all kinds of old, early 1900 cameras. And I thought, man, that would be cool if you could figure out how to operate it.
Yep.
And do that stuff with it, to do film on it, to do the EVP, stuff like that. And man, that would be so awesome. But I'm not, I'm co-creator of this at Paralink.com, but I'm not the computer guy on it. My buddy Sean's a computer guy. So I'm kind of internet computer intolerant on some things. But man, if I knew how to do that with the cameras, I would do that in a heartbeat.
One of the coolest ghost pictures I've ever seen from the Axe House was taken on a tintype camera from the Civil War era. And that got me thinking, it's like, I want to try getting back to this old school lo-fi technology. This tintype camera caught this image of a shadow where there was no shadow, and it's so creepy and awesome. And, it's like, let's try everything. Try stupid experiments. Like, even with apps, I know a lot of ghost hunters are like, apps, no apps. And like, we got to try new stuff. Otherwise, we might as well still be doing seances. At some point, somebody said this K2 meter might pick them up, or this REM pod might do something, I download every app that comes out, and if it's dumb, I laugh and delete it. But I've had a few that have said things personal. And I'm just like, and the reason, so I did an event with Mark and Debbie Constantino before they passed, and they had 10 identical recorders. Same make, same model, same settings. We use the same batteries out of the same multi-pack. All were touching each other, lined up on a desk. 3 of them would get EVPs where the rest wouldn't. So it's like, okay, voices are just vibrations that resonate on eardrums and make a noise. Do ghosts have vocal cords? Why are we talking to them? Do they have eardrums? Or is it just psychically imprinted on what they want to have to hear or experience? Because we've all been in places where, oh, my buddy's having all kinds of experiences, but I ain't having nothing happen. It's like, you seen this little kid? I'm like, nope. It's like, but I feel like that particular night in that particular location was specific to that person's journey, not mine. So it's imprinting on him. There's a lot of, like, John Tenney, one of my best friends, talks about a lady seeing her grandpa's ghost. He's in his fishing boots holding his fishing rod. Well, he's not walking around as a ghost in his fishing boots with his fishing rod, but did he trigger that memory in her brain to see that as her favorite memory of him? Yeah. There's a lot to learn, I think, about the psychology of all of this. Perception is a crazy thing.
Yep. I agree 100%. Grizzly, he had brought up a couple times before about the cigarette on his back porch. Yeah. If you want to tell that story real quick, Chris.
Yeah. So when I was younger, my grandfather passed. We was down at the lake, and I got up to get something to drink. And, on the deck, we had, I think it was like 15, 16 by 40 or 50 deck on the porch, screened in. And decks, they warp. And back then, it was an old aluminum door. And we had a bell on it. And this door, when you open it, you'd have to pry it open. You can hear the door drag, and the bells would ring. Yeah. And at night, we would lock it. And you would know if somebody would try to open the door, because you could hear it and the bells would go off, but you couldn't open it. Well, I get to go up, and I'm like, somebody's out there on the deck. And I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, I'm sleeping right next to the door. I was like, I didn't hear the door open or the bells go off. And somebody took a puff of cigarette. I'm like, that's my grandmother. I'm like, what did I? That's like, hey, grandma, get up, grandma. And why is it that when you try to wake somebody up, they do not get up?
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? So when I got her up, and I was like, look, I'm like, Grandpa's out here smoking. And she's like, what? I'm like, no. So we went out there, and she's like, are you out here smoking? There was smoke out there. I'm like, no, I'm not out there. I was like, Grandpa's out here smoking. I would not go back to bed that night. Mm-hmm. So he came back. Everybody on my mom's side of the family has always came back. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So, and that has been burned into my memory. And and when every time he took a puff, half the side of his face would light up. Mm-hmm. And he always stood in that one spot on that deck to overlook the lake. And that just freaked me out. And that was not too long after he passed. So, yes.
So was he triggering that memory in your brain to see it visually to say, hey, I'm here? So, I mean, where's he going to buy cigarettes at? Well, like, was that just
why was there smoke on the deck?
Right.
Because she thought I was smoking. I'm like, what the hell? I ain't smoking. He was smoking.
See, there's just so much in this field of stuff like that. Why is there smoke on the deck?
Yeah, because with the roof, it was there. It had nowhere to go, besides over and under. And it was, some of the smoke was trapped. The cigarette smoke was. Yeah. So, and it was fresh. And it was like, and I'll never forget it, because at nighttime, especially during the Vietnam War, they always warn people about smoking at night because they can see it for over a mile away, remember? Yeah. Yep. And when he took a puff on it, the glow lit half of his face up. Yeah. And I was like, there ain't no way in hell I'm watching this. Because at first I was like, oh, hell no. Somebody's getting ready to meet Jesus right now. Because I'm going to start shooting through this glass. Yeah. Because I thought we had somebody that got onto the porch, because we have a fridge on the deck too. Mm-hmm. But when he took a puff and I realized who it was, because I was like, oh, hell no. I was like, Grandma, you got to get up. And of course, I don't know why is it, just like in the movies, they do not wake up. Yeah. And I was like screaming. But anyways, yeah.
It makes me very happy that your grandpa can still sit out on the deck at night and have a cigarette. Like that's awesome.
Oh yeah,
in the afterlife,
he still comes back, even on the police force. My officers, I never forget sitting in the car, and when I was a detective, one of my officers was on the outside of the car, took off running, and I thought I was being ambushed, and I was like, "What the hell?" He was like, "Dude," he's like, "somebody appeared on the other side of your car, just like out of nowhere," and I was like, "What?" And because he just took off running. And he described them to me, and I was like, whatever, right? And I sat there for like a couple of days, couldn't figure this out. And I'm like, no. So I was like, hold up for a second. So on my off day, I went down to the station. I'm like, can I show you a picture? And I was like, did he look like this? And he turned just pale white. He's like, who is that? I was like, that's my grandfather.
Nice.
And he was like, oh my God. He was like, that was him. And I was like, yeah. I was like, are you serious? So, yeah. So he over the years, he always come with me. And I remember even when I was on county, I would have paperwork in the front seat. And I would look over and it looked like the paper would be bent. And I'm like, what the hell? I didn't think nothing of it. But, hearing stuff like that, and after hearing him tell me, it makes you wonder, was that him or could it have been him? I don't know.
Come on, grandson, we got some crimes to solve.
But now he retired from the city of Louisville Police Department.
Oh, well, that makes a ton of
sense. His brother was on Jefferson County, and he flew the helicopter for the county police.
Nice.
So yes, and my psychics, one of my psychics always tells me before I moved from Lexington, "Are you getting tired of straightening up your pictures?" And I'm like, "Huh?" They're like, what are you talking about? And they're like, are you getting tired of fixing them? I'm like, yeah, I got tired of fixing them. They're like, yeah, they're falling off the wall, aren't they? I'm like, how do you know? That's your grandfather telling you to hello. And I'm like, damn.
Hey, grandson.
So, yeah. Because it was. I would walk down the hall in the living room, and I would be like, straighten them up. And then finally, I got tired of fixing them. And one day I came home, and the one in the living room was just off on the floor. And I was like, hell, I ain't hanging back up. I'm getting ready to move anyways,
Yeah.
Stop it, Grandpa.
So,
Grandpa, knock it off.
Yeah. But you ought to see some of my shows with these cat balls. I mean, I have another camera in the studio that I got set up. And I would have cat balls set up on these stands. And during the shows with because I got like $27 on top of my studio desk. And they have some attachments to it per some of these psychics. And they would make my cat balls go off and whatever else during the show. And I'll be talking to you. And next thing you know, you see a cat ball just go fly and hit me in the freaking forehead. I'm like, are you freaking serious? And they're like, did you see that? I'm like, no, I felt it. So below, I had to go out and buy me a damn tape gun with super duper sticky tape to tape these damn balls down to my mic during shows, and I'll be talking and they just go off for no reason. And people be like, hey, make the balls go off, and the balls will just light up. I'm like, stop it.
Your ghosts are like, dude, watch this.
Yes, they do. Exactly. So then I was filming a TikTok series for one of our shows with FDL, and I get nervous, Johnny. I'm not going to lie. I get nervous. And this tape is super duper sticky. I mean, your fingers stick to it. That's how sticky it is. And I'm filming, and this damn whatever it was took my K2 meter, and you could hear the tape going off the doll. I'm like, no. And I'm like, no way. And and I had it wrapped around the doll. I'm like, oh my God, stop it.
Stop moving, doll.
So, and I had to cleanse the studio like last week 3 times and with 5 prayers. And I have a whole lot of holy water.
Oh, yeah. That's a must have.
So I do. I have a whole lot. And so I did a seance with my dolls, a few of my dolls. Nothing happened. So, but during the show, all hell breaks loose. Right before we did this show, stuff was being knocked over on my studio desk. FDL, his wife, stuff was happening in her room, and we can't figure it out.
We're like, hey, I want to be a guest on this show.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, ask Michael at FD. I mean, it's crazy. We just cannot figure it out. So yeah.
Yeah, if you ever get a chance, Johnny, FDL is they're based out of Europe or close to London, north of London.
Nice.
They're actually a pretty good group. They got some good videos out there too. If you ever get a chance, look them up on YouTube or something. Michael Lewis is his name, and his wife, and then a bunch of friends. But they, you've been there, I'm sure.
Look,
it's
everybody's
crazy.
Already laughing, Johnny.
it's crazy. Crazy haunted over there,
so much history.
Yeah, and they talk about it. They go a little above and beyond in some things. He has what's he take? He has that Bible, doesn't he, Grizzly?
He reads from a demonic Bible.
Yeah, the demonic Bible. He'll read from it.
Hey, Johnny. Let me tell you something. If they get no action, he'll bring it out just to see if he can. Oh, hell yeah, he's crazy.
They get action after that. Yeah, but they are really super nice people, and it's a good group. And they, like I said, if you ever get an opportunity, check your YouTube stuff out. It's pretty good.
Sure.
FDL. Definitely. Hey, so on the talk of that, like I said, I've listened to a few interviews in the past on you. I'm interested in your amp. When you were younger, you talked about having an amp with your guitar.
Yeah. So I'd sit there and just jam out in my bedroom, and I had a guitar, cheapo amp, and a wah pedal, which creates the intro of Voodoo Child by Jimi Hendrix. That's what a wah pedal does.
Yep.
And it sweeps the frequencies. I'd leave it open, and you could hear talking coming out of my amplifier. I'm like, what the hell is this? And so I get my family in there, and Dad has his little boom box, and he hits record and starts asking questions and starts getting answers. They play it to all of my family, and they're all bawling. That's Grandma's voice. That's Grandma's voice. I know Grandma's voice, who passed away. And so it's like we were doing ghost box sessions in the 80s, and that kind of set motion of what I do for a living, for sure, just to sit and watch my aunts and uncles in tears hearing this voice. And one of it said something about my name, and then a car. A week later, I got in a car wreck. It was and then so this particular house we went to, it become a big thing where friends of mine would come visit me after school, and we'd all do this ghost box session with a guitar amp and a wah pedal. We take it upstairs at this house we lived in that had stuff happening. As soon as I turned on the amp, it goes, "Get out," like the cliche "get out." And man, we all went running down the steps. Half of us is bowling balls. We tripped over each other. We're all sliding down the stairs. And, hosting people at my house to witness the ghost stuff was a normal thing in 1990 for me. It's when people go to school reunions and they find out what I do for a living, nobody's shocked at all, because that's what I was doing as a little kid.
Yeah, wow. I would have come over to listen to that stuff. I guarantee that. I may be scared of a few other things, but if somebody was telling me they were catching some voices on a box, I'd have been over there in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, and they'd be like, "Yeah, right." And it's like, "Come over, we'll do it after school." And we'd all of us sitting there in a room and doing this ghost box session with a guitar amplifier. And I should take guitar and an amp and a wah pedal over to the Axe house and see if I can duplicate that. I mean,
that would be cool.
Same idea. One of the first ghost box I had years before a ghost box was a thing, and this is actually it. Totally looks like a bomb. I can't take it on airplanes.
Yeah, no shit.
But it actually has 5 different radio boards in it, so you can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all at the same time, back and forth, multi. It works as a EMF detector, static electricity. It's all in one. And this was 20 some years ago. This was made.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now your dad was, like you said, he came at the started recording, but he was into it, wasn't he? Into the paranormal.
Dad's been Dad's where I get my weird stuff from, and Dad was the one telling me, pushing me to follow my dreams. You can, if you want to do this, you can do this, go do it. It's never too late to work 9 to 5. 9 to 5 sucks. Go make your dreams come true. And they live down in Arkansas. They got 40 acres down in the Ozarks there. And he's constantly telling me about how many Sasquatch he has in his backyard. And I'm just like, okay, Dad, take too many pain pills today. Or I was telling a friend the other day, it's like, he probably has 4 Sasquatch in his woods, and he's probably telling the truth. But my favorite dad story ever. Went down to visit, and we're just sitting down there in Arkansas, and he goes, tell you what happened the other day? I'm like, no. He said he's out in the shop working and heard a help me. I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, a little voice saying, help me. I'm like, oh, that's weird. He goes, I couldn't figure out where it's coming from. And there's a coffee can tipped upside down on the desk. And he's listening, and he put his ear to the coffee can and heard, help me. He said he lifted it up and a bee flew out. I go, you telling me a bee was saying, help me? He goes, all I'm saying is the bees don't bother me anymore. I'm like, what? That's Dad.
That's one way to get rid of them, I guess. Yeah, if it works, it works. Yeah.
So that is Dad, and Mom is very practical, no nonsense. So like that's where I come from. The believing bees are telling me help me to, okay, I got to debunk this. It's like a good yin yang.
Yeah. And being a good parent, it sounds like he's a great parent. Like my parents were anyway. They lead you in the right path and want you to follow your dreams. Believe in you no matter what you do. Right? It sounds like that's what you do with your daughter. And that's what I've done with my kids. So,
my daughter's like, people what do you want to be when you grow up? You need to start thinking about it with college. She's like, I want to be a ghost hunter. You can't do that. I'm like, oh, really? You can't? I did. Well, you're lucky. No, I'm not. I'm lucky. Yeah. But, fortunate to be in the situation I am, but so is she. She can do whatever she wants. Anybody can do what they want. That's why we live in this country. You can create your own job and do it.
Exactly. Hey, something else I was going to follow up with you real quick on one of the interviews, and I don't know much background on it. So the Van Meter monster. Monster. My wife gets on me because I say monster, but it's monster. So what is the Van Meter monster? I've heard about that in a few different times.
The Van Meter monster is basically kind of like Mothman, way before Mothman. In Van Meter, Iowa, this town was for a week solid, like plagued by this monster. And they said it was like a 6 foot tall winged creature with a huge wingspan, parrot-like feet, and had a horn protruding from its head that glowed like bioluminescence. The people that saw this creature night after night was the sheriff, the school principal, like the owner of the bank. Very
respected people.
Yeah. Last day they saw it, they all got a posse formed. They chased it to this mine shaft in this town. They took a shot at it as it ran into the mine. 2 more jumped out of the trees, ran into the mine after it. They dynamited the mine shut, ruining the economy of this town. That was their source of employment.
Yeah.
So me and my friends go to Van Meter and we do this documentary. I think it's 1908 is the name of it, when the year that this happened. And the idea was, we're not going to catch the Van Meter monster, but it's such a cool story. Maybe that's all this documentary is a story. We go camp out at the mine shaft. We had permission for all this stuff. That was the weirdest night of my life. Like, the first thing that happened, I'm looking up at the stars like I always do, and I'm just like, what is that? And it's like stars in the sky and the lights going like that fast. And my son hooks onto it with his 4K camera. He's like, I got it. We're all watching it. Disappears. We're like, whoa, what was that? We turn around. 3 more shoot up out of the ground up into the sky, like just that fast. Mm-hmm. We check the weather patterns, flight patterns, anything that could be. Clear night, no thunder, no lightning, no nothing. No flights were going over at the time. Meanwhile, we have a very tiny condenser mic dropped into the shaft of this mine. It's like the size of a fishing line. We're letting that record all night. We walk down a pathway, see what looks like some sort of creature walking. I'm like, are you guys seeing a shadow? So I walk to a tree. The further I walk, closer I walk to this tree, you could feel like a vibration, a hum inside your body, and it got stronger and stronger. It's kind of like when you walk up to an electric fence for cattle. You can hear that, and the closer you get, you can feel it. So I have everybody else, like one by one, walk to that tree, just whisper to me afterwards what happens. They all felt the same thing. We hear a train coming, and some of the camera guys get on the train tracks to get cool B-roll shot. I'm like, you better get off the tracks. They're going to think you're trying to kill yourself, and slam on the brakes. Right then, the rumbling, the sound on the tracks rumbling, it all stops. And we're like, huh? We look around the corner. There's no train anywhere. It's like, oh, are you telling me that's a phantom train? Come on. we review the audio that we had in the mine. Girls singing. We're miles away from anybody. There's no girls in this mix. Like, come on. It's just all dudes camping out, way away from anyone. There's nothing in sight. So it's like UFOs, cryptids, ghosts, haunted phantom train, vibrations, girls singing in a mine that's been dynamited shut. It's like the whole paranormal unification theory of where one thing happens, everything happens. It's like an octopus with several tentacles of ghosts, aliens, cryptid. Like, it was the strangest night of my entire life. Man, it was so weird. So weird. And that documentary is on Netflix or Amazon Prime. I believe it's called 1908. If you type in Josh Hurd on Amazon Prime, it's going to come up with that. And it was just so bizarre. I don't even know how to describe that night.
Josh Hurd, 1908. Yep. Yeah, I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, for sure. And if you get on there, there's a bunch of other Josh Hurd documentaries that I was part of, like A Brush with Evil 2 and 3. And
oh, really?
The last Brush with Evil we did, half of us were at the Malvern Manor, the other half at the Sally House. And we had Josh's wife type up questions. She sealed them in envelopes, handed us an envelope, handed the other an envelope. We timed it on time.com. So it's like all to a T. We had a guy remote listening with live audio. One side is Malvern, the other side is Sally House. Like, it's all documented everywhere. It's like 8:05. Okay, I need to ask a question. Ghost of Sally House, can you touch Josh on the arm to see if it would react? And I'm doing this at Malvern Manor right at 8:06, 8:07. Josh, I just felt something touch me in the arm. And so it's like working, that's a really good documentary.
That's cool, man. And Chris, this is why I like this guy. He's scientific to an extent, but he's also, I guess scientific in the same way that he experiments, experiment stuff like that. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's got to be controlled, as much as it can be to throw off the haters, but you still got to be open. I mean, it's all weirdness. Like,
right.
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
And that's what I try and get these young kids to do. Is like, try weird experiments. Think outside the box. Do stuff.
Be innovative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got to be innovative. People I know are diving into barometric pressures now. They're diving into more digital. Well, not digital. More technical. Mm-hmm. Now we have the internet. There's more access to all different things, and let's face it, there's more access to parts than what there was 10 years ago. To innovators like you guys when you were younger, starting out, and they're able to put together some cool stuff. But then, test it. Let's let everybody test it. Don't just go out there and test it and tell everybody it's real. Hey, this is the one thing, because you got to experiment with it. You got to have a lot of people have the same opinion on it. Try to get as much factual out of it that you can.
The guy that made this for me decades ago came up with this idea. I'm like, what if we do an EVP session and we get an EVP and it records what frequency that EVP came on? Then I can ask a question and it plays at that same frequency. Do we open a line of communication on that frequency? And he created a device that does that, and it's worked.
Oh, wow.
It's just insane. Another thought was voices are just vibrations. So he created a device that one thing's at this end, one thing's across the hall. They're pointing at each other. It sends a vibration. No word banks, nothing like that. Just a pulse. And can this other device record that? And if it turns it into a voice in between there, and it's worked 2 times. We've tested it probably 200 times. It's worked twice. And it's like, oh my gosh. Like there's no word banks. It's not picking up outside noise. It's picking up this pulse being sent to it. And it created a word out of that. That's awesome.
That is cool. Man, that's just great. So trying to think. So I remember hearing you talking about Paranormal Lockdown, an episode you were watching on. Trying to remember. You're getting overdubbed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. If you had a second, let the people know about that. That'd be cool.
So I think the NDAs and stuff are done now. Paranormal Lockdown was originally me, Nick Groff, and John Tinney. And we shot the sizzle for it. And then Katrina ended up getting us the spot because they wanted a male and female, which is awesome because Katrina is amazing. It is what it is. And I think the coolest thing, so I went to Malvern Manor because people were Facebook messaging me, yo, I was at Malvern last night and your name came out on the Geoport. First one I got, I'm like, okay. Got it again. And I just kind of ignored them. I'm investigating the Axe House and I'm getting Inez, the captain, weird EVPs of names I've never heard. I end up going to Malvern, taking a tour, and Josh is like, yeah, the guy that owned this one as a motel was known as the captain. This is the room where Inez killed herself. I'm getting EVPs of the, and so I'm walking around. I'm down in the nurse's wing and I see something out of my peripheral vision. And I stop and I look and it's like darker than the dark, and I'm staring at it and I turn my eyes to kind of readjust and I look again, it goes like right at me. Like, Nick, you need to get here immediately and do an episode here. This place is crazy. They do an episode. We filmed that. But then it was reshown in Brazil, I believe. And they overdubbed my voice and Nick's voice and Katrina's voice. And like the overdub of my voice is a very, como estás? Like very gruff, and I'm like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever had happen in my career.
That's when you know we hit the big time, man.
Somebody's overdubbing my voice, and somebody in Brazil's watching this, and
that's cool, man.
Yeah,
you were talking about that shadow coming at you. So a few right before COVID hit, like I said, we went to Ashmore Estates, to Nick's tour. My wife and my buddy Tom, and I had this, my partner, Paralink, he made this camera for us. And it's, it's an infrared camera, but it catches anomalies. At that time, I showed Nick it. He loved it. He's like, man, that's awesome. Daniel loved it, whatever. And at that time, that's you just set it in a dark room, just like you would a hunting camera. If you're outside, you set it up. But it marks any face or movement. It'll circle a shadow or anything like that. So I had it sitting up on that 3rd floor. On I think it would have been the south side, there's just a little light coming through from the street light. And all the way at the other end, Nick was down there with the group. And I had it sitting in there for an hour because I just leave it by itself, see if it catches anything, and it automatically circles it. That way you ain't got to edit. You ain't got to go through the whole thing to try to find it, right?
Right.
So I walked down to grab it while he's doing the geo box down at the other end. And I ain't kidding you. I picked that camera up and I walked into the hallway. And right out of the corner of my eye, I saw a shadow, and I got a horrible pain in my shoulder blade.
Mm.
Didn't think about it. I turned my neck real quick, right? So I'm thinking that I pinched nerve. I've had them once before in my life. I had a pinched nerve a few years before. So I go in, I tell Nick, hey, I saw this out there. He goes out there, kind of investigates. All of us are out there looking around, nothing. It got a little bit worse before we left. You have the Q&A afterwards and all that.
Yeah.
And it's 2.5 hours from my house, so we drove home that night. I woke up the next morning. I could barely get out of bed, right? So I'm thinking, man, it's a pinched nerve. So I go by the ball. You put it on the wall, and you're rolling your back up and down. And I'm using the corner trying to get out. I'm telling my wife, this is the worst pain, And so I go to my doctor, and of course they don't want to give me an MRI right then. That, hey, you're going to go to workers hardening or whatever it is, some type of therapy. So I go to the chiropractor, and he's popping my back, doing this and that, going to therapy, and it's just getting worse and worse. I was actually sleeping 1 hour a night on my couch like this because I don't have a recliner. My foot's propped up on the coffee table and leaning back. And then my doctor finally gave me some muscle relaxers. That's the only thing that helped it. And finally, after like 3 months, I go get an MRI done. My insurance decides to pay for it. And I'll be a son of a gun if my doctor called me that very next day, because I did it at night the night before after I got off work. He says, hey, you need to get over to a doctor over in St. Louis. They sent me over there. I was missing my vertebrae.
Wow.
A disc. I was missing a disc in my vertebrae right behind my neck. There's no way, coincidence maybe, but there's no way in heck that I can think of that really did that in that amount of time. Like I said, I've had a pinched nerve before once, and that's what I thought it was. And here I was going to chiropractor. He's popping my neck and all this stuff. Thank God it didn't do anything bad. But it all related back to that. I almost got out of the paranormal field because of that. Yeah. I mean, I literally almost did. But then, how much of a coincidence is that just so happened that night? So you're talking about that shadow kind of brought that memory back to me. But yeah, it was definitely ridiculous.
yeah. That kind of dark stuff. I try it. Like, I'm all about the door slamming and a footstep and a voice, but when it gets to stuff that can do that, it's like, leave me out of it. Don't want nothing to do with it.
I tell you what, it got so bad during it that I did the sage at the house.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a spiritual advisor. We're near Alton, Illinois, so Mineral Springs. I'm sure you heard of that.
Mm-hmm.
They have a spiritual person in there, a medium, and she started talking to me. I went up there just do a cleansing, and she was saying that I had she's like, you ever notice an Indian or like that in your life? I was like, just so happened like a couple of weeks before that or a month before that, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I've done this a lot in my life. I wake up and I see an Indian standing by the closet door, and I'm like, yeah, that's weird that you say that, and she's like, make an offering, whatever you got to do. And I made that offering. That was right before COVID started. I've never seen that Indian since, and fixed my neck. So thank God.
Yeah.
They had to have surgery for it. They put a little Pac-Man piece of metal in there, but man, that was too close for comfort.
Right.
I almost stepped away from it, but yeah, but thank God I didn't, because I enjoy it. Like I said, I enjoy the people. We're all a big community. Mm-hmm. That's one of the reasons why, and I hate to say it, I'm not bragging or advertise, but Paralink.com, that's why we did that, just to try to bring the community together all at once. In a nice positive environment. So, but yeah, that shadow thing brings that back to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Thanks, man.
I'm glad your neck's fine now.
Yeah, no, thanks. Yeah, it's definitely better. So,
Well, I really appreciate you coming on the show, Johnny, and taking time. I really do. And everybody else appreciates it too. So,
well, I'm going to have to get down to Kentucky and look for some Bigfoots with you.
Oh, they're here, man.
Yeah, that'll be a good time.
Hey, they're out there in the Ozarks. Don't be fooled.
Yeah. Right.
I tell you what, we might be making the trip up to Field of Dreams here, and
nice.
we'll swing by the Axe House.
Yeah, definitely.
And do a tour.
My first trip to Kentucky, went to Lexington. We're going to Scarefest. We show up at 2 a.m. It's like, let's go to Walmart because I want to buy a machete because Kane Hodder was there. I wanted him to sign it, and
yeah.
You haven't lived till you've been to a Walmart in Kentucky at 2 a.m. I'm like, where am I? I'm looking at machetes, and I got my friends with me, and there's a worker. He's like, can I help you? It's like, we need machetes. You just take a look at me, and they go, oh, dear God, you boys are fixing to kill somebody in the woods, aren't you? And the guy walked off.
Oh, man. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, definitely, though. I think we're going to be making it up here. If you're okay with that, I'll get a hold of you on Facebook.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah. Hey, brother, we really do appreciate you coming on, and much respect for Chris. Thank you, Chris, for having him on with me.
Anytime. Absolutely.
Just a good time, and next week we have, give me just a second here. Whoop. We have, who do we have here, Chris? I sent it to you. I got it pulling up right here. Next, we got Henry Lee, owner of the Gilchrist house.
In Florida?
I believe so, yes.
The jailhouse?
The Gilchrist. Hold on a second here. He just sent me this the other night. It's a 1928 old jail in Gilchrist County.
Yeah, I remember him. He's a good guy. You like him.
Yeah, he's definitely a really nice guy. I think he's watching today, or he came in for a little bit. He's a member of Pac-Man Paranormal. Yeah. And I shared this across a lot of my groups, and Grizz has this actually on a lot of Facebook Lives on a lot of different groups, and
15 platforms, 98 Facebook groups, lives, and you'll be in 13 audios in the morning. So
nice.
Yeah, definitely. And again, like I said, thank you so much for coming on here.
Thanks again. I appreciate it, sir.
Be reaching out to you.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, for coast to coast around the world. That's a wrap. We'll catch you on the next show, ladies and gentlemen. Take care.
See you guys later.
Ha ha ha.